Guess who didn't botch things enough next time to not be invited back this time? This girl, guys. Thank you very much. What's up, guys? Roxy Striar here, and we are talking a lot of different things today with some of my favorite people, starting with the guy that agrees with me on absolutely nothing, Dan Murrell in the house.
100% disagreement, right? But that's okay, Roxy.
I heard that you're not usually here on Fridays, so clearly they were trying to spice things up by having us next to each other.
I think that something must be in the rundown that they know that we're not going to agree on. That's the only explanation that I have.
I'm trying to figure out which one it is.
I don't know.
Well, we'll get to it. Eventually we'll come and we'll have to acknowledge its presence. Also, back on this Friday, a couple times this week, coming over from El Rey, it's Vanessa Gritton in the house.
Hi.
I'm loving the blue, your blue dabba-dee-dabba-die.
Yeah, I just touched it up a little bit. Now we can key out my hair and something.
Did you guys used to say, I'm blue, if I was green, I would die?
Yes, actually.
Well, that's one of the
not.
many reasons Iron Man 3 is a great movie is it opens with that song.
Yeah.
And that voice is Eric Goldman, giving us all the Iron Man 3 wisdom.
That's right. Me and Billy still need to have like our showdown over this movie.
Why? What's happening?
Oh, he hates Iron Man 3 and I love it, so.
Billy Business hates Iron Man 3?
He does.
Makes sense.
It's come up here and there. We've talked about at some point we're going to.
That's a hot takes episode.
Yeah. What's his main issue?
He says it didn't have enough ramifications on, like, he's like, they never reference it again, which that's a whole other thing.
Iron Man 3 fans at the table?
I enjoy Iron Man 3.
I like Iron Man 3.
Or a pro Iron Man 3.
It didn't really feel like anybody was writing home about it here. Just
I
now.
wrote home about it. I said, Dear Mom, I love Iron Man 3.
And she wrote back saying, Eric, why are you sending me
What's
these
an Iron
again?
Man?
Yeah, 100%. That's what I did a review for Spider-Man, and my 91-year-old grandmother called me and said, you're talking about the Spider-Man? I used to read that as a kid. I was like, that's very endearing. But that is not what we're talking about today. Today, we are talking about Paul Rudd, because he has joined Ghostbusters, or at least he's in final negotiations to do so. So he is right now talking about joining the latest in the Sony installment of Ghostbusters. Jason Reitman, of course, son of OG director Ivan Reitman, is directing. He co-wrote the screenplay with Gil Kenan, and he's expected to shoot this later this summer. Oh my God, that picture on there is absolute. Do you think that's a selfie, or do you think somebody just got really
that's
close?
from the video he posted. This is why we can say he's really doing it, because even though they say final negotiations, he posted a video outside the Ghostbusters firehouse in New York where he was basically like, I'm doing it.
Well, he is absolutely doing it, especially according to Variety. This is coming from Jason Reitman, though. This is a quote that he said, I've been wanting to work with Paul Rudd since my short film opened for Wet Hot American Summer at Sundance. I'm thrilled he'll be joining this new chapter in the original Ghostbusters universe. Sony won't officially comment on the plot details. However, reporting has suggested that the story will be an extension of the original Ghostbusters and focus on a single mom and her family. So what are you guys thinking about this? Are you excited to see Paul Rudd join the cast? Any major Paul Rudd fans in the building right now?
Paul Rudd can do no wrong, man.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd is the best. First of all, Wet Hot American Summer is one of the best movies ever.
Yep.
It is hilarious, and that is such a legacy Hollywood thing to say. Just I've wanted to work with Paul Rudd ever since my short opened at Sundance. Oh yes, we could all really
By the way,
haven't we all wanted to work with our favorite stars since our shorts opened for their movies at the Sundance Film
It's such a weird pat on his own back. Like, oh yes, and I knew this since my film.
I mean, I guess you could say he was like, I just had a short, and he was in a feature film.
You could say I've been wanting to work with Paul Rudd for a long time.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just a weird
It's a flex. It's a bit of a flex.
Just so you know.
It's a weird reminder.
Anyway,
I agree with that. But I think that Paul Rudd only elevates every single thing he does.
Yeah.
And I've been a fan of him since back in the day when I was watching my favorite show, Friends. So I am just a huge supporter. There's rumors that he is going to be playing a teacher in this. How does that make you guys feel?
I mean, it's funny. I get because it sounds like it focuses on there's the I guess controversy is it kid Ghostbusters? 'Cause it sounds like it might be basically focusing on young teenage Ghostbusters. Carrie Coon being the mom, and now Paul Rudd is the teacher. Can you resist putting a proton pack on Paul Rudd is my question.
How do you?
How do you resist doing that?
Yeah.
What do you think the actual answer is?
I think you can't. I mean, he might not be a Ghostbuster per se, but he could be Louis Tullied in as like a to assist on this sucker.
Or like a Steven Stranger Things, where it's just like the adult that hangs out with the children and also participates in the shenanigans.
Yeah.
What minute in do you think we would see that? Like, how far into the movie can they wait?
1 hour and 36 minutes in, because it's a third act reveal. It's like here's Ghostbusters is the Rudd's got to suit up too.
Yeah.
We're taking bets right now, Vanessa. What minute?
Oh man, I'm such a child because my brain was like 69 minutes because it's Friday and this is where my brain is.
I feel that. Dan, how long in?
Mid-credits tag.
Oh, okay, it's a tease.
They tag
Tease.
they suit him up in the
Yeah.
as the it's a Terrence Howard and Iron Man situation. Although that
Really?
happened in the you know what I mean.
Is that
Yeah.
something that we're expecting now for all of these movies to do? Are we getting a mid-credit and post-credit Ghostbusters thing?
There was one at the last one. The 2016 one had a post-credit tag on it.
I feel like
Yeah.
you do expect it from anything that is trying to be a bigger franchise.
Yeah.
It's funny because I'm rewatching the Fast and Furious movies right now. I forgot that the first Fast and Furious movie actually has a post-credit scene. It's just Dom driving in Baja or wherever he went. But it was with the fifth one where they're like, now we got to start teasing stuff,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Because that's the era we're in.
The casting makes sense, especially since he's coming off of playing Ant-Man, which is a character where it's like you need a slightly scientific, intelligent background, but also being able to do the action stuff. I keep wondering if they want him in sort of like an Elder Venkman kind of role, where it's like this older and bitter teacher that might be working with kids. I'm just speculating at this point, but trying to figure out where they're clicking him in.
I bet it's more because what he does so obviously the MCU uses him so well in a reactive way, and to be like, "Whoa, I can't believe it! Like that crazy thing's happening! Like this is cool."
A really good jump off.
And I feel like you could use him. I brought up Louis Telly, the Rick Moranis character, because I could think it's not the same type of character, but someone else who's like on the periphery, but can be like reacting to this crazy stuff happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
When do you guys think Paul Rudd went from being a name that was added to a cast where people kind of just accepted that and went from being a name to added to a cast where people were like, yeah, it's Paul Rudd in this movie. We got Paul Rudd, guys. And here we are talking about it to this extent.
Anchorman? 40-Year-Old Virgin?
40-Year-Old Virgin
Yeah.
might have been it for me.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I already loved him.
Short of yours.
Right. I love them since Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. No, but I do think it feels like 40-Year-Old Virgin was like such a big moment for everyone involved in that movie. Again, all of whom had been doing other stuff, but it just seemed like it was they were all used so well. There was a great ensemble together, and that's after that is when Rudd started to do a lot of those comedies and started to do like role models and just all these different things. So I think that kind of helped get him into his next phase of his career.
In general, for this new Ghostbusters movie, Paul Rudd aside, how are you guys feeling right now? Are you feeling incredibly excited? Are you slightly nervous? Is there anything that they could announce that would make you be more ready for this film?
I'm split. As a Ghostbusters fan, I am very curious to see what they do. As someone who works on the internet, I'm dreading this thing like it was the apocalypse.
Right.
What is the main reason for
to
that?
the choir.
Because it just is gonna unleash a mountain of whatever.
The worst kind of contention.
I hope that never mind. I've given up that hope long.
I mean,
we can all be adults and just,
Yeah.
understand that we're talking about a Ghostbusters movie, but that's long.
It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
territorial. Because I don't know if you saw, there was like the big sort of Ghostbusters convention a couple weeks ago, and I believe Ivan Reitman was there. I know Jason Reitman was there, and Paul Feig was there too. And I know Jason Reitman has been very and especially at this convention, I think they even did a panel together, like Reitman and Paul Feig, and so he's doing his best, to his credit, to be like, hey, Paul Feig made a Ghostbusters movie too, and nothing but love for him, even though we know there are sections of the fandom that is still going to be like versus, and and not and have to be a battle about everything. I hope it's a good movie. I mean, I've liked a lot of Jason Reitman's stuff, not everything, but I've liked a lot of it. So, and, I mean, it helps that he sort of built up this long career doing quirky, smaller movies before he's doing like a sequel to his dad's biggest movie ever. you know?
Yeah.
What do you think, Vanessa?
One of the reasons I really love the original Ghostbusters is it's not so much about like all of the action that takes into play, but it's the actual like character story of the four of them together. And I feel like when we tend to remake a lot of movies, whether it be Men in Black or Ghostbusters, we want to take a really big like action, high production angle to it instead of the actual character story in the middle of it. And I feel like if this is going back to the original formula of like, yes, there's ghosts and yes, there's this action element, but we're focusing on the actual character story, then I'm excited.
Okay.
But it's a trend I've noticed with remakes where it's like, let's find the original thing, but we don't really understand the heart of it, so we're just going to throw a lot of graphics and action sequences at it.
Yeah.
Talking about remakes, it is Fan Friday, so we have a question coming from Matt Caraco, who wants to know which movie franchise needs new blood on the screen, and what are your perfect performer/franchise matches? So that's a couple of different things in there. Let's start with which movie franchise needs new blood on the screen. Eric, any thoughts on which thing?
Well, it's funny because we were talking about if you could just sort of put someone into a pre-existing franchise, and because we had a big talk the other day, Dan and I were on a show where we were talking about the Conjuring universe, which has been doing quite well for itself with its different offshoots and whatnot. But I have a long time childhood crush love for Winona Ryder. And I was like, put Winona Ryder in a Conjuring movie.
Interesting.
Get her into some creepy Conjuring business. I would like that combo.
It's so crazy that when the first thing that pops in my mind now when I think of Winona Ryder, the very first thing is, have you guys seen that gif of her doing all of the math in her head?
Yeah, at the award show.
At the award show with whatever is going on.
Yes.
And why? Why is that the first thing I think of when I think of Winona Ryder?
Because
that is not
you've seen
fair.
it on your Twitter feed a lot.
It is on the Twitter feed a lot.
That was so unfair to her, though. She's done a lot of things. That can't be the only thing I think of. Vanessa, what about you? Any new blood into franchises that you're thinking of?
This actually ties into what I was saying earlier, which is a lot of these remakes, when they go, they want to remake it and really focus on like the action hero end of it. And I really love Jurassic Park, and I think the thing that worked about the original Jurassic Park is that it wasn't like this action hero that was starring it. It was just a scientist that got caught in all of this. So I want to pull it back a little bit, and I want Sigourney Weaver, because we've seen her pull the scientist that's just really interested in the environment that she's in before in Avatar. I think she'd be really fun in a Jurassic Park setting, and put it underwater, because I just want to you see that.
You just randomly threw in the water.
Yeah. And
dinosaurs.
Put it underwater. I want underwater dinosaurs.
You just used the question to somehow get to underwater. You were like, I don't even care what you just asked. We were going underwater.
Submarine!
Dan, new blood. Talk to me.
James Bond.
That was gonna be mine.
So badly at me, and I know that there's an instinct because he hasn't done a lot of movies to think of Daniel Craig as the new James Bond, but he's been James Bond for 13, 14 years at this point.
Also known as a minute,
Yeah, a minute, and it's just, and the franchise just feels. I felt like at the end of Skyfall, when they were sort of had this thing like, we're going to take it back to the classic James Bond thing, it was like, oh, okay, that could be interesting. And I was super excited as a Bond fan. But then with Spectre, I was like, you did the worst of the old stuff, but also tried to keep doing... It just didn't work, and we'll see how this new one turns out, if it turns out, because it seems like a new disaster befalls it every day. But following this, I just think they really, and this happens to James Bond every 20 years, is you've got to go back and break it down back to the atoms and rebuild it up. And I think that they should really put a lot of time and energy, and don't cast the fan choice, although Daniel Craig was certainly not the fan choice. But that worked out pretty well. Earlier. It's been hit or miss, but they just really have got to go back and figure out what is the new iteration of James Bond, because this one has run its course a lot by quite a bit. We'll see what this new one is. I hope it's good, because it's the 25th and you want it to be yay, but after this they have to completely de-atomize it again and rebuild it.
So the way that I think about this one, and there might be some groans at the table, I'm sorry, but I've only ever seen one James Bond movie, and I think, okay, what would get me excited to go see and to be part of the James Bond franchise? What do I want to see? And that's why the name Idris Elba just keeps coming to me. That would get me my butt in the theater for a franchise that, frankly, I'm sorry, and I know that a lot of people, I don't care that much about, because it wasn't I didn't grow up with it. I've only seen one. It was GoldenEye, and it was fine. I played the video game growing up, so that was like my only exposure to it. So what would get me excited about it? Idris Elba would get me excited about it. I think he'd be such an awesome casting in there. So that would be my choice. To the second part of this question, though, perfect performer franchise matches. I mean, there's just so many of them out there. Vanessa, any ones that really stand out to you right now?
Perfect performer franchise matches?
Yeah.
I mean, right now, the one that everybody has been trying to speculate as to how it was going to happen, which is Keanu and MCU. I'm hoping for Taskmaster, but it's the kind of life that I've wanted breathed into it.
Okay.
Breathe's not a word, is it?
I think it sounded really good, and if you hadn't questioned it, people would have just been like, "Yep, breathe in, breathe in, breathe out." Eric.
Well, I already said my Winona Conjuring thing, so I'm going to actually completely circle back and say the other franchise that I'd like to see revitalized, by the way, again, is it a franchise? I don't know, is the Universal Monsters. Just because the Dark Universe thing, no, that was not the right way to do it.
You're preaching to a choir right now.
But it's like there's such great history there with the characters. I hope this Invisible Man movie that Blumhouse is doing works. Just don't try to do what you did with Invisible Man. So that was my way to not answer your question, except to say Winona and the Conjuring.
Well, I think this question is about current perfect performer franchise matches, like our favorite ones that have either now or have been. Dan, any perfect?
It's a weird one, but I liked Ocean's 8. The remake of Ocean,
really
not
fun.
the remake, the new Oceans movie, and I like the cast, and I hope that, and it did well, so they might make another one. But I would like to see. I was thinking about like who should, because I like when they have a big personality to go against, like Andy Garcia, Al Pacino. I think that's really cool. So I think it would actually be cool to see them go up against Jamie Lee Curtis.
Ooh, I like that.
She is the big bad in the next Oceans movie, and she's like the mogul that they have to square off against.
She's a great big bad in Scream Queens.
I just think that she could be a great big bad in anything, and because we like her so much, I think she's often the person that we root for.
Yeah.
But I would love to see her kind of like what Sigourney did, and like for me, I lost all interest in the Defenders when Sigourney Weaver's part was done.
Yeah.
Because she was so good. As like the mogul on top. And then when she was gone, I was like, oh, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I think that Jamie Lee Curtis would be really good as like the bad guy in a heist movie that they have to like
I agree with that.
Everything you guys are saying, by the way, makes me want to see Sigourney Weaver and Jamie Lee Curtis in a movie together, which I don't think
that
has
would
happened.
Also be great.
Yeah.
Are they friends, frenemies, enemies?
They could start as enemies and end up on the same page.
And then
I like it.
I'm shipping this in my
Hobbs
head.
and Shaw-esque.
I'm shipping it hardcore too.
To answer your question about like current perfect matches, I want to say Chris Pine as a Kirk in Star Trek. That's a perfect franchise match.
Yeah.
I don't know how long you'll have that match for, girl.
Might be our memories.
Yeah, it might
For
be a day.
the amount that we've had it for now, I'm happy with it. I don't need any more.
Wow.
I'm content.
I mean, we never hear people just be happy with what they've had. I feel like, for me, Gal Gadot, I think she's just the perfect DCU person, and I think that in a time where the DC worlds of DC, DCEU, DC whatever we're calling it, so badly needed that shining light. She was able to do that with Wonder Woman, and I think that match was just phenomenal, and especially from being cast and everybody being like, "What? Who is she? She's too small." By the way, I think I was one of them. It was like skinny, never again.
You sound like Rosanna Dana in your with that voice.
Also, why did I make that my voice?
I don't know. It's funny.
I was first imitating internet trolls, and then I was imitating myself as an internet troll.
That was Roxy circa 2013.
Doesn't really make sense. But let us know what you guys think. What are the perfect franchise matches? How do you feel about Paul Rudd joining Ghostbusters? A lot to talk about there. We're here on SJ News, on Fandom Entertainment. You're going to want to like and subscribe. I'm gearing you up, Ryan. And hit that bell, baby. Yeah, like it's the only thing you ever wanted.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Is that the first time all week he's hit the bell on cue?
We had 3 bells. There we go.
Whoa.
Yeah.
He ran over
Three
2 other bells.
Yeah.
I literally was like, what is Ryan? What did he just get up and sprint faster than anything's ever happened for?
He rang 1 bell and then he ran away for more bells.
Was that on purpose with the bells over there? Or did you forget to bring all 3 bells over here?
It just kind of happens, and I didn't want Dan to be mad if there wasn't one for movie fights. So.
Okay, just kind of happened.
I didn't want to leave.
No, I would be angry.
Furious.
More importantly, even though, than hitting all 3 bells, Dan, I know that we're supporting our amazing editor, Randy, and his fundraiser. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Randy, who's one of our editors, who does brilliant work. If you cram it and basically anything you've seen just about on this channel, Randy's had a hand in doing it. He's amazing, and we love him. And
Randy's handy.
Randy is handy. He's a great editor, along with Kevin, along with Emin in our post department. They are a hearty band, and we ask a lot of them, and they always deliver. And Randy and his wife are raising funds for their son Isaac, who has a rare epileptic disorder called sunflower syndrome. And it's one of those disorders that is really not well researched, that there's not a lot known about it. And so Randy and his family are raising money through Massachusetts General Hospital, who is funding a research fund to look more into this, to learn more about it, to help families like Randy's who, they just need to know more about sunflower syndrome. So he told us that what he was doing, and Joe Starr took the ball and said, if you send me a screenshot that you donated $10, I'll say something nice about Michael Bay's Transformers movies. And so
for every person?
For every person that sent him a $10 receipt. And so he was doing that.
Oh my God, Joe.
I initially just wanted more people to raise money and to make Joe say good things about Transformers. But then somebody said, well, Dan, if I send you $10, will you say something nice about Jurassic World? And I said, okay, why not? So
Game on.
So I started out as saying nice things about Jurassic World, while Joe is saying nice things about Transformers. But it has now evolved to like people. It's become like a special request thing. Like now we have people sending us stuff like, say something nice about King Arthur. Say something you don't like about Jaws. Say something good about Jaws 4.
Wait, but are these real things or fake things that you're saying?
These are real things. These are real things. Wouldn't mean anything if they were fake.
So you're finding real things you like about King Arthur.
Joe is finding real things, but really we started sharing it. I think Roth shared it, Joe shared it. I think the team started sharing it on social. Within an hour, we got it within $1,000 of the goal.
Wow.
So I had a few things that came in this morning that I've seen Joe doing stuff, and if anybody else wants to jump in, feel free to do that as well. But first of all, thank you to everyone who has made a donation, because I know it means the world to Randy's family, to the other families that are affected by this, and also there's a link in the description below. Even if you can't donate, if you want to share the link just to raise awareness, that would be fantastic. But I know that Joe and I are also continuing our pledge. If you send us a screenshot with your $10 donation, it's become the request hour, so I guess we'll say something either good or bad about any movie that you would like.
Yeah.
Dan,
8 requests are already
Game of Thrones season 8 requests.
Dan, I would like to throw my hat in that ring. I will also say something if you guys send it to me. I'll say something good about Phantom Thread, or bad about life itself. So I would also like to throw my hat in for that, because how much fun, and also for a good cause.
Yeah. So check that out. The link is down there in the description, and it's also just kind of a fun thing. It's a great way to interact with the fans out there, and it's also a wonderful mental challenge and exercise in trying to figure out how to say nice things and mean them about things that you don't like.
What did you say mean about Jaws?
I said that, and this is true, that the moment when there's like the fake out on the beach where they think that the shark is attacking and then it's going to the pond, the actor who points to the shark and just shark. It's not a good performance,
right.
And it really undercuts the suspense of that.
Not the best Martha Vineyards Day player.
Wow, how did you put that into one tweet?
I abbreviated it a little. I have another one. If anyone would like to donate, send me the screenshot. There's another big thing that I don't like about Jaws that I would share.
Wow, somebody do that right, like by the time this show is done, so that he can announce it. Yeah, yes. I need to know that. Talk about spilling the tea. We have a ton to talk about when it comes to Netflix right now. Now I know why they asked me back, because I'm the TV person. So, spilling the tea. I didn't even realize. Spilling the tea. You see what I did there? Yeah. Oh my God! And I got the bell.
It's a bell of approval.
It was not my best. Thank you guys for making me feel not as moronic as I should right now. Let's talk about One Day at a Time, because this was a show that everybody was hashtagging. They wanted it to be saved.
Yeah.
It had 3 seasons at Netflix, and people who watched it seemed to love it. There was discrepancy on how many people were watching it, as Netflix said that it was the most watched show, but you asked your friends, and a lot of them did not watch this show, and so it was a little confusing there. But CBS has now stepped in, CBS Network, and their Pop channel. If case you guys don't know it, that's where they air all of my Big Brother shows after dark. So I'm very familiar with Pop, and they've decided to pick up this show. So it was canceled 4 months ago, and the season 4 is now going to be on Pop in 2020. It's not the only time that a show has been saved, but it is the first time that a show has been canceled by Netflix and saved by cable.
Yeah.
Do we think that this is the start of a new trend, or do we think that this is going to be an epic failure and nobody's going to follow in their footsteps, or somewhere in between that? Dan?
It's insanity. This is literally everyone's just switching
shifted.
places. The streaming services are becoming the new cable, so they're going to cost it. And now we have shows that are canceled by streamers that are now being picked up by cable. So dogs and cats living together. This is just how it is instead of 1 or 2 or 3 streaming giants sort of rivaling cable, now everyone wants to splinter off. So there's 10 of them.
Yeah.
And now cable is the home for places that don't have shows that don't have a place.
I'm gonna say, on an industry level, it's nanners to hear. As a massive One Day at a Time fan, I am stoked and ignoring the ramifications.
I like that.
Will you find Pop to watch this? Okay.
Absolutely will. I adored the show. I loved the show. The writing on it, the cast was phenomenal. It was maybe the first show to be canceled because normally I'm like, well, I've had what I've had and I'll take it. This was the first one where I was like, I'm legitimately saddened by this.
Did you tweet #save?
I talked about it on my own show. Like, I tweeted it. I talked about it on my own show. There's so many people in my circle of friends and family that loved the show. I do find it funny that when Netflix canceled it, they said we need to look for other stories to tell that can garner bigger audiences. And part of me just wanted to be like, oh, like The Ranch? The hit show that no one can't stop talking about that somehow went on for several seasons. The Ranch?
Clearly not your favorite.
No.
Eric, thoughts?
It's just very funny to see, because Netflix, they build, and they saved several shows. I mean, we should mention, like, even the past year, Lucifer was another time where they saved the network show.
Being literally one of my favorite shows that there is. And not only did they save it for a 4th season, but they picked it up for a 5th and final season.
But at the same time, they've been starting to cancel a lot. It used to be like things keep going, but now it's like, no, they're canceling left and right. And so I did think, wow, we've really flipped around here. The day One Day at a Time got canceled, and I saw Lin-Manuel Miranda tweet out, NBC save One Day at a Time, and like, we are now getting the celebrity driven save our show to save a show that Netflix canceled aimed at a network. And like you said, dogs and cats living together. It was inevitable. I mean, Netflix just, everyone was like, Netflix, and it was just so funny. Anything got canceled. Netflix, you gotta save it, Netflix. And it couldn't last forever. And now, we're seeing that other people are seeing, the value in these shows. I mean, we can dig deeper into this, but it seems like Netflix is so data-driven. Not that other networks aren't, but like they are minutia data-driven. And so that's why they're going to just be very cutthroat, even more than other networks might. And so we're going to see stuff like this. Apparently, CBS All Access really wanted One Day at a Time. Couldn't because it can't go to their streaming service for a couple years thanks to the deal, but they still made it happen because CBS owns Pop as well. So it was like corporately they're like, we want this show and we're going to make it work. And I don't think it'll be the last time this happens, especially now that Netflix is pretty much being cutthroat, and if a show gets to season 2 or 3, that's usually it these days for Netflix.
Do you think that Netflix is so data driven because it's easier to track views as opposed to cable TV now, where it's so challenging as everybody is bootlegging or taping, watching later, or watching online, all these different ways, and on Netflix you're watching it on this app?
Well, I mean, they know your name, they know your address, they know your age, they know where you live, they know how long you watch, they know what you watch, they know how many episodes you watch. I mean, they have every cable TV ratings have always been an estimate. Like, we have to pull a statistical sample size of this many people, or put a box on this many people's TVs, and it's this X amount represents this number of people. Netflix knows down to the second.
Yeah.
They know everything about you and what you watch. So Yeah.
Here's where it gets, I think, here's where it gets dicey for TV fans, or if you love a show, is that there was a big article I'm sure you saw in Deadline, I think March or April, when One Day at a Time was going through, like, Who Will Find It, about why Netflix is starting to cancel everything after 3 seasons. And basically it's because for them, a show that's gone past 3 seasons is almost never going to add subscribers. You know, it's got its fan base, maybe a very loyal fan base, but new people aren't going to join. And that's the thing, is like all they care about are new subscribers. And so for them, it's not like a show, you know, a network show that has had the same loyal audience for 7 years, and that's great because they can still sell ads off it. For Netflix, it's like, oh no, season 4, we don't need that. It's not going to add more subscribers. Yeah. Something bright and shiny and new, that might bring in new subscribers. And that's where, if you're a TV fan who, like, you know, wants your show to go on for a while, that's where you might want to be a little hesitant about how the way Netflix makes their decisions.
On that note, do you guys think that Netflix is going to struggle now that more competition is popping up, like a Disney Plus or Warner Brothers or an Apple TV streaming, or any of these places that are going to have the ability to also do their streaming shows, if Netflix is known as the company that cancels after 2 or 3 seasons? Are creators not going to want to go there?
Maybe. It's as far as them struggling, like, I'm openly skeptical of Netflix's ability, you know, but what they have now is the existing. It's not so much like Disney Plus, not so much, but like Hulu Plus and Warner Media and everyone else, like, they are going to have to sign up so many people. And the Netflix's big advantage is that if their customers if somebody does nothing, then that's a win for them, because they're already a subscriber. If you're a Netflix subscriber and you don't, like, they just have to keep people from not leaving their service. Yeah. Which is I think easier than getting people to pay more money for a new service. So I think that's their big advantage, is they already have a bank of people that already have it and are just going to be like, whatever psychological reason it is, they're like, I don't want to cancel it, I'll just keep it. Versus, I don't know, I'm going to have to wait and see if I want to spend money for this new thing.
Is there a show that Netflix could cancel that would make you guys leave the subscription?
I mean, right now, it's hard for, I think, for a lot of us with, like, our jobs, we're kind of like, because, like, right now, I mean...
That's true, for what we do. But I mean more as a fan. Is there one show right now on Netflix where if they cancel that, you would legitimately question if you should keep paying them your $12.99 or whatever it is at this point?
I'm already there with them as far as, like, if I didn't have this job and if I just, like, it was in a bubble, would I need Netflix anymore? Because they put out so many shows, but only a handful each year of, like, just the dozens now, it seems they launch, are ones that you're like, oh, I might want to watch that. But again, you know, to Dan's point, it's like they just don't want you to cancel. And I think most people, even though it's not that hard to do, most people won't actually cancel, because if they can just sit in front of Netflix and it keeps showing them new stuff, which is exactly what they want, and that's why they have a new show. I shouldn't say a new show. They should have half a dozen new shows every week, because it's like something will start playing, Because right now there's not a lot that I'm like, I do love Stranger Things, you know, but that's, you know, 8 to 10 episodes a year. There's not a lot that I'm like, oh man, you know, I'd love. But there's, you know, I really liked Russian Doll. There's like good stuff certainly throughout the year popping up on Netflix, but it's not like I look to them for, like, I look to FX more if I'm looking, like, for, like, where's a bunch of quality stuff, you know?
Yeah. Vanessa, how about for you?
Honestly, I can't, because the biggest one was One Day at a Time for me, and like you said, for this job, we stick with it. But the only one for me that could have possibly made me do that was One Day at a Time, and even then, there was still enough content to keep me on. I think the biggest thing is just it's making me hesitant to want to even start a lot of their new content, because I'm like, it's like falling in love with someone that's only here on, like, a month-long trip from finding themselves. You're gonna go back soon, so I'm not gonna give myself the hard break.
It sounds very close to home for you with that one. For me, what's so crazy is that my main Netflix things were, besides Stranger Things, all of the Marvel shows, which bye-bye, and also Jessica Jones being one of the best seasons that they've done this past season was heartbreaking for me because it was so great.
I love Daredevil season 3 too, by the way.
Yeah, and then for the other ones were Friends from College, which they axed, and Santa Clarita Diet, which they also axed. But I'll be perfectly honest with you guys, I don't think a single show they could cancel that would make me stop paying for Netflix because of just the amount of content that I view there every single day. Yeah, even with The Office now leaving, and with Friends probably going as well. I still will pay for Netflix. But I wonder if other places are benefiting from this, like Pop. Will this bring a new breath to Pop, or breathed, as we like to say here? Is Pop now going to see an uptick in viewership because they're going to glob on to this canceled show, maybe other Netflix canceled shows, and start to be that place that people go because people don't really know what Pop is.
Right.
Yeah.
Their only buzz has been with Schitt's Creek
I
as
was gonna
Pop.
say.
Yeah. And that's going to its final season. So this is a savvy move for them because they have one show that has a lot of buzz around it, but it is ending. And they'll probably use One Day at a Time. They'll probably air them together or have Schitt's Creek's final season like end the week that One Day at a Time comes back, you know? So I'm sure they are looking at stuff like this.
Yeah.
What other channels do you think we can expect to see this from, where if Netflix starts canceling things, they're going to grab onto them?
I'm going to say probably FX.
Really? How come?
FX's entire TV lineup is so strong on its own, and just the general way that they tend to curate their channel, that I feel like they'd be the most likely one after Pop.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you will start to see it. I think we're getting close. It obviously with One Day at a Time came pretty close anyway with CBS All Access, and I think One Day at a Time is going to now air a second run on CBS proper. So I think we're getting pretty close to NBC or CBS will save one of these shows if it's in their wheelhouse.
You think so too, Dan?
Maybe. It depends on the show. I think that the streamers take advantage of not having to worry about censorship or not having to worry about passing standards, broadcast standards and practices. So I think it's a narrow thing of just like a lot of shows could only be picked up by an FX, like Daredevil. I would not want to see ABC pick up Daredevil, right? Because then it's got to conform to the network standards and practices. So a show like One Day at a Time would work well, I think, in a network environment, but I think the number of those shows is small compared to the concessions they would have to make if they had to operate by more standard broadcast things. Although FX, I remember watching the Betty and Joan feud, and they just dropped the C word, just like boom, like there was nothing, like whoa, on television, like wow.
And then with shows like It's Always Sunny and Legion, like they're just niche enough in so many directions that they can be a lot of homes for a lot of these Netflix and Hulu shows that couldn't really find places anywhere else.
Although you do wonder, now that FX is owned by Disney, I don't think the content will change. I don't think they're going to drop the language. I just wonder how much they will even turn more and more towards wanting to own all their own stuff.
Right.
Like, because the whole reason Disney wanted all of the 20th Century Fox stuff, FX included, is just to own more stuff for their streaming services. So FX, I don't think they're going to be 100% like, no, we won't take anything from outside studios. I just think they're going to be very selective.
Yeah.
Part of the major problem here is the secrecy behind this all, because we don't know how many views these streaming services are getting. And they have been super cagey about it. They tell us that something's doing really well, and then they also say that it's not. Or like I was talking about before, you don't know anybody watching it, but it's one of their highest viewed shows. Like, that doesn't quite make sense. I know that for you, On the Block was something you were really excited to talk about, because there's right now major cast negotiations. This is supposed to be one of their top shows, and so the cast is using that to try to get paid more money, as you do when you know your show is doing well. But when it's not public with all of these numbers and you don't know exactly how many views you're getting, it can be a major problem. What do you think about this, Vanessa? And do you think that they should be more open about what the actual number is with how many views they're getting?
Absolutely. Because not only does it make it easier for the actors themselves when they go into negotiations to really lobby for what they're worth. But I found it really interesting with On My Block, because I thought I found it as like a sleeper, because it wasn't really advertised that much, and I came across it. It's basically like Degrassi, but like tighter acting and writing. And I started talking about it and realizing everyone else in my circle had come across it and started watching it as well.
Interesting.
And it is a sleeper hit that they haven't really been boosting that much, which I think adds to cast not being able to negotiate their pay bumps. That makes sense after a really strong season 2. They're the reasons people tuned in for seasons 1 and 2. it's not uncommon on a third season for main cast to come in and negotiate for more money. And this is made immensely more difficult when they don't have the numbers to prove what they're bringing in.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, it's super complicated. I mean, last year, Netflix themselves said On My Block was the most binge show of the year of 2018. When, again, they're so selective with any numbers they put out. And they put that out. But
do you think that's true?
Probably because there was an asterisk with that. They said, well, what they mean by most binge is it's like the show that people who started watching watched the whole thing of. So they're not even saying it's the most viewed. Again, that's super complicated. It's like, clearly they're saying this show is beloved and popular, but they're also not going to say, well, it's not one of our most popular, or maybe it is. It just makes it, it's funny. There was a quote I remembered from Jenji Cohen, who produces Orange is the New Black and a few other shows now for Netflix. And I remember she had a quote where she was saying how hard it is to do negotiations for raises when you don't understand the numbers. I forgot that quote was from 2014 because Orange is the New Black was already on at that point. So this has been a problem for them for years now, and it makes things, I think, very testy because people are like, you're saying we're a hit show, so shouldn't we get raises? And they can go, well, you're not that big a hit show, but they won't tell them what that means. They won't tell them barometer. And so no one knows what is, like, one day at a time when they say didn't have enough viewers, they're like, well, but what do you mean compared to what?
But they had previously said it had one of the best fan bases.
Exactly.
So it's so confusing.
That's the thing. They'll use such
weird words,
buzzwords and terminology, so you can't really pinpoint it. And I think it will lead to a lot more of these situations where people are saying, "Well, we think we deserve a raise, but we don't know how much, and you won't tell us how much." And
it's the newest version of Hollywood accounting, which is there's stories about movies like Harry Potter movies that, if you go to the accounting department at Warner Brothers, they'll say like, oh, because a lot of the actors have back-end deals. If it makes this amount of money, then I'm owed this amount. And there's you would hear, going back as far as those deals were in place, actors that would go to get their cut, like, well, the movie made $1 billion worldwide, and the accounting department would say like, yeah, but it wasn't really that profitable, and they just push the numbers around here and there, and they can make a movie look like it didn't make a profit if they want to. And I think
it's crazy.
Netflix has so many data points available to them. I honestly think they can make any show look like a huge hit, and they can make any show look like, well, I know that you think that a lot of people are watching, but if you look at this metric, actually, that's not the case. That's the danger of, there used to be no way to hide behind. There was no way to hide behind how popular your show was because Nielsen released the ratings, and if you're on The West Wing or ER or Friends, you know that, hey, 30 million people a week are watching my show, and I know that the advertisers charge this much to advertise on the show because those numbers are also public, so I know the dollar value of the show, and I want to be paid accordingly. And now you're in a case where it's all in the network's hands, and you just have to hope that what they're saying is true, but also, come on.
So I don't watch On My Block. Is this a kind of show where season 3 we could start with a whole new cast, or does this cast have legs to stand on, saying if you guys don't bring us back, you have no show?
Yeah, season 3 can't go on without them.
Okay.
The entirety of the charm is based on the cast and also where the story is right now and the way they ended it. There is no way they can't. I won't spoil anything, but basically the way they ended it is by not something that can be wrapped up in an episode. But 100% the charm of the show is the relationships of the 4 main cast members together. Similar to Stranger Things, where it's the way the kids interact with each other. All of the other stuff is great, but you want to watch them together. That's a big case with On My Block. They're why that show works.
Another thing with what Dan was saying about like the numbers and the subterfuge is a few months ago, again, because they don't give out viewership, but then they will kind of put out a press release, or someone will be making a speech and they'll just say one thing.
Yeah.
And they said that which, strangely was a Lifetime show that then moved to Netflix, but You and Sex Education, they're huge. 40 million people are going to have watched these shows by the end of the month. And people were like, what, 40 million people? Like, that would make it like bigger than Game of Thrones. Like, there's this massive show. And then they're like, okay, well, what they mean is 40 million people will have viewed part of one episode. So that's like people who like laid on the couch and it started auto-playing the first episode, and then they didn't finish even the first episode.
Which they can control, by the way.
Right.
Plays.
What
autoplays. They can put it as
and
autoplay.
so it's this bizarre thing where it's like, okay, how many people actually are fans of these shows. Sex Education, how many people are actually like watch the whole season, and that they're not going to tell you. So it's like this very strange thing where they can just kind of throw out 40 million people, and then you're like, what does that really mean?
Do you guys think at some point there's gonna be a way to force them to tell us the numbers? And force seems like an aggressive word, but I mean, at some point, is there gonna be some kind of law or something?
Lawsuit.
Yeah, lawsuit.
Yeah.
That
is what
you know,
would
you're
force
right.
their hand.
Yeah. If a creator says like basically like that you were making our show sound like it had less viewers than it really had. It was really one of your top 5 shows. Again, how would they prove that? This is very difficult. But if like we think that we can show that our show was really one of your most popular, but you told us it was mid-level to not give us the raises we were deserved. Because they've done this thing where they've been signing these mega deals, right? Like Ryan Murphy, Shonda Rhimes are making like hundreds of $1 million. But that basically protects them from this happening because those people don't need to renegotiate for anything. If they're being told, like, well, you're just getting paid like $500 million to make this many shows for us, they're not going to need to fight for season 3 raise. It's the people who have a surprise hit. It's the people who make a show like On My Block that is not going to be touted, but suddenly does become something buzzed about. They're going to have, like, Dan said, I think one day, we're going to get, someone will do a lawsuit.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, it is Fan Friday, so I want to make sure we get to some fan questions. Doing the little... JT doesn't care about my dance. He doesn't even care.
I love your dance.
I'll just do it live for you guys. Fan Friday, go Fan Friday. Great. Nailed it. Way to go, Rox.
Well, we got the from JT.
Oh, he said no. JT does not
Didn't
want
say
to.
the magic word.
I think that should come with a snap, too.
Didn't say the magic word.
We see you at Nova2512. He says, on SJU today, 6/28, please give a happy B-Day to Mel Brooks. 93 today. We're more than happy to give that well-deserved 93 Mel Brooks happy birthday. He says his question is, over a half a century of making us laugh, and he arguably making a bigger impact on comedy than anyone else, what's your favorite thing he's done? That's not one of his movies. Mine is 2000 year-old man skits. I was like, my 2000-year-old man skits with Carl Reiner. They are a masterclass on funny. So I'm sorry, I'm gonna override you, Nova. Overriding. If you guys want to pick from a movie, that's totally fine. Also, just favorite moments from his movies, or for a moment like this, talking about Mel Brooks, whose birthday it is.
If I picked one that was from not one of his movies, I would pick the Muppet movie, where he plays basically like a mad scientist who's pretty much coded as a classic Nazi movie scientist. Who talks about lower the yarmulke onto Kermit, the whole thing. So that was a really funny cameo in Muppet movie. Happy 40th anniversary to the Muppet movie. But then I'll have to go to Spaceballs, which I know is not one of his best movies. Obviously he has classics.
Get ready.
I mean, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. I'm just
my
saying
favorite of his
it's
movies.
not on Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein. But I will say, if we're talking moments, because I reference it constantly, Spaceballs the flamethrower. Anytime we're talking about merchandising and they're making everything. God, what are they making from Stranger Things? They're making everything. I'll end up yelling out Spaceballs the flamethrower. So that is.
Do most people understand your reference at this point?
I think most people understand my reference, which is the power of Spaceballs, a movie I love. So don't get mad at me.
I'm angry inside right now, but I'm trying to keep it down.
Right.
Vanessa, what do you think?
Oh man, there's so many moments in Young Frankenstein, like anytime Cloris Leachman's character appears and the lightning strikes.
Yes.
But the one that I like, it's so small, but I repeat it to myself every day, was the candle on the door scene in Young Frankenstein, where I'll just find myself doing dishes and I'll be like, put the candle back. And it brings me so much joy. Although the wall breaking and Blazing Saddles I love because I drive home past it every day. Or if you go to the smokehouse where Ken Knapsack and I look for George Clooney.
I once
The
watched,
Burbank one,
Blazing
yes,
Saddles at the Chinese Theater, which was pretty cool.
That is so
That is
cool.
great.
That movie ends.
That is awesome. Dan, favorite moments?
First of all, it's always astounding to me that Blazing Saddles and Young Frankenstein came out in the same year. And the fact that he made those
Insanity.
2 movies
What year is
in
that, do you know?
1974.
Yeah.
I
This is
believe.
Jurassic Park Schindler's List here.
It
Yeah.
is insane that those movies came out back to back the same year.
Crazy.
It became a movie, but the movie is a pale imitation of the actual thing. The Broadway stage production of the producers is hilarious. It is incredible. I was very lucky. I had a drama tech teacher who we would go to New York with the drama and the tech kids and the drama kids would take a group every year to go to New York to see Broadway shows. And I had Miss Benson, who's a wonderful teacher, the best teacher I ever had.
Shout out to Miss Benson.
Shout out to Miss Benson.
Yeah.
She heard when the producers, the original with Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane, was in previews in Chicago, it was getting a lot of buzz, and she had the foresight to pre-purchase tickets for us as a group to go see it that summer. And by the time we got there, it was already the Tony-winning, huge, massive, but can't get tickets, the Hamilton of its time.
Yeah.
And it is phenomenal. It makes fun of Broadway the way that his movies make fun of movies.
Oh, it's so
and
good.
the movie was not a good. The movie was the Broadway show, but they didn't modulate it for film at all. So it's just them playing to the back row on film. They recast with. I get you had to put stars in it with Uma Thurman and Will Ferrell, but the stage actors were far superior. They just were. It's the movie stars and it didn't quite work. But Mel Brooks, according to what they say, was he doesn't read or write music. He can't
crazy.
sit like a composer and write a song. So they said he would sing into a tape recorder. He would write the songs and sing into a tape recorder, and then they would take his music that he was singing into a tape recorder, and then they would take it to people who would orchestrate and arrange and everything. And that's how they wrote the producers. And it's brilliant. It's the best parts of the movie and a fantastic stage musical. There's a thing that's not in the movie where they're doing a thing where. Max Bialystock is in jail, and they're doing a thing where they go through the whole musical, and he's singing different things, and he gets to the part in the show where the intermission was, and he just goes intermission. And he just sits down on stage in silence for 10 seconds, and then gets back up and keeps going through the show. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant Broadway show, and Mel Brooks just as good as the movie. The producers.
Do you guys feel like comedy would be the same today if it wasn't for him?
No.
I don't. This is a weird connection, but there would be no Deadpool if there was not Mel Brooks.
Give it to me.
We would not have the Deadpool movie. We would not have meta humor or something that is so self-referential and something that understands the industry and lampoons it the way Deadpool does if it was not for Mel Brooks. There's a direct line between the two of them where one had to walk so the other could run.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
I love that reference because how strange it was for you to get to those dots, but pretty perfect.
I agree.
No
think,
Farrelly
Dan?
brothers.
Yep.
Zucker brothers.
Zucker brothers.
Any brothers.
He made it okay for, he and others, but really with the Blazing Saddles campfire scene, made it okay for comedies to be rude.
Yeah.
And just there's this unspoken thing of a lot of times comedy is it's a high comedy, it's a farce, and he's just like, no, I'm gonna make a fart joke because people fart, and I'm sorry that you have a problem with that and you don't want to put that in movies, but it's true. And I think that kind of mentality carried over to Animal House, carried over to the Zucker brothers, and then on and on and on.
And also doing these parodies with love and insisting that Young Frankenstein be in black and white because it would fit right, which I think a lot of people, whether it be the Zuckers or Ben Stiller when he was doing parody, it's I'm gonna meticulously mimic the thing that I'm parodying. I want to show that I know it. I'm not just gonna say the stuff. I think that was a big thing too, as far as his approach to actually artistically how he did these things.
I agree with you all, which is very rare. Dan, I don't think we've gotten into our thing yet.
Not yet.
Maybe on this one? I kind of doubt it, though. A question coming from Meg Embers. She says, I have a young reporter audition on Saturday, and if I get it, I will be doing press junkets and reporting on upcoming films. Yay! I am so nervous. So do you have any tips/tricks that help you with press junkets and reporting? Well, I think we're the right people to ask, Meg. And let's see if we can help her out, because that's great that you have an audition. Eric, any tips, tricks?
The first thing I think about with junkets is try to treat the interview like a conversation. I think some people get really tripped up. And look, I have done this. I will still do this once in a while. You come in with your set of questions, and you want to get through those questions, but the person might be saying something that might be great to follow up on. So don't be afraid to go off that. The other thing I've seen people do is say you have a question, and then a later question, the person ends up answering two questions in one. They kind of get ahead of you, and it's oh, that already answered something I was going to ask. That's when you need to pivot. And so again, it's treating it like a conversation, listening to what they're saying. Of course, you want to stay on topic. And kind of, if you're talking about this film, talk about the film. But I think, that's been the thing I've learned the most. I think early on I was very much reading my question to the person, and now it's like use that as a starting point, and then see where it goes from there. I think can help a lot.
Okay. Yeah. I had a tendency to do the same thing too, where if it was a question that they answered the two, I'd end up asking it again, and then I'd get nervous and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, you technically already answered that." And it's such a cheesy piece of advice, but it's literally just take a giant deep breath, let the conversation lead itself, be very open to the directions that it can take, because the more you try and steer where it goes, the more you might trip yourself up and make yourself anxious. Of course, if you have like a certain amount of time that you have to keep under, have that in your head, but literally just breathe, take a big deep breath beforehand, because I'm a word vomiter, and if I forget to do that, I will not shut up. So,
Dan, any tips?
I haven't done a lot of them because I am like Meg. I get super nervous. And so a lot of times they'll be like, "Oh, do you want to do this?" I'm like, I can't. But we've done a lot of writing questions for junkets and brainstorming, and as an editor, I've edited a lot of when we would send Hal out to do stuff. And I think the main thing would be there are people that have been in the game for a long time who a lot of people are on autopilot, let's be honest. A lot of people, like, whatever, they do 5 junkets a week. Yeah. But at the same time, that means that if you're interviewing somebody, like, say, that's in a Christopher Nolan movie, take time to think of something beyond, because you have to understand that 90% of the people that walk in that room are going to sit across from those actors and say, "What's it like working with a visionary director like Christopher Nolan?" And they're going to go on autopilot, and they're going to give you the candy, because it's a survival instinct, because those junket days are a drudgery. They're 12 hours for those actors.
That's the nicest of them will go on autopilot. The meanest of them will say something like, "I've answered this question 50 times today, you got something else?"
Right. But I've seen if somebody, like, if you're the person that sits and connects the movie they're doing to maybe another movie they've done in the past, and say, like, "Hey, I noticed that you played this kind of role a lot," or, "Hey, was there any connection that you drew between the character in this movie and your previous work here?" Or, like, you can see in an actor's face, like, there's kind of a neutral thing, and if you ask them something
they're getting engaged
that they weren't expecting or they haven't heard before, they'll go, "Oh," and they'll perk up, and they'll actually, because now you've engaged them and they're not answering the same thing, like, "So what's it like on a comedy set with this group of actors?" And they're like, "I love this ensemble. We're a really good group.
We're like a family.
We're like a family, and
so
I really
what's it
appreciate."
Like is the number one question of every Q&A that is asked by someone in the audience, and it's asked 3 times, always by minimum. Every Q&A I've ever been to. What was it like working with this legendary director? And then everyone back is going to ask the same question, minus the one where it's like, "Weren't you in Melrose Place?" So,
I think the tip that the mistake I see people make the most, and that I want to give you, Meg, and to anybody listening, is to not talk about yourself so much. Some of these times I will watch junkets, and people will say, "When I was 8, and I watched back when in my screening, at Sundance, when I fell in love with you." And then they'll spend, if you only have 4 minutes with somebody and you spend 3 minutes telling a personal story, you don't have time to talk to them. So if you're saying "I" a ton, you're probably not doing it right. This should be about them. This is not your spotlight. This is theirs. And just do all your research, prepare, and then throw it out when you get in the room. And listen to what they have to say. So that's all the time we have for fan questions today for this Fan Friday. No, I thought maybe he'd give it to me at the end. No, still no with the segue, JT. But we do have more videos for you to watch tomorrow. Cram it for Stranger Things, Dan. It's coming out. Is it a good one?
I think so. Lon Harris. I am the voice of Cram It usually, but Lon Harris is the brain behind it. So I think he wrote a really funny script. We're trying to get it. We are in the process of posting. I'm going to go look at a cut as soon as we're done here.
I like the thought of you being Lon's voice, his brain attached to your
largely mouth. That is Cram It. It is largely Lon's brain attached to my mouth.
That's pretty amazing.
Someone do an image of that.
There's going to be too many. I don't know if I want to see that. I'm more curious about his Jaws thing. Also, guys, don't forget to share Randy's fundraiser link in the description below. And until then, where can we find everybody? Where can we keep up with you, Eric?
You can keep up with me on fandom.com, of course, and then the Eric Goldman on your Twitter and your Instagram.
Eric, that was the most shocked you've ever been by anything I've said.
I was. I just wasn't expecting it.
Oh, me?
Oh, and
where can you find me?
and the We Enjoy Wrestling podcast. You should check that out.
Awesome, Vanessa.
You can find me on @Gritton on all forms of social media. Also, check out my sketch team Night Church under Hail Night Church on everything.
And Dan?
Admiral Dan on Twitter here. We have a review of Spider-Man Far From Home out right now, and check the description below for the fundraiser.
Exactly. We'll be back on Monday. We'll see you guys then. Bye.
Bye.